video just setting up MongoDB. It's a NoSQL database, so non-relational comparatively to MySQL or relational databases. So assuming you have basic knowledge on the technology and whatnot, we're going to just dive in and create an account. I already have an account, so I'll just log in. And yeah, I'll walk you through the process of getting the connection string, which will look something like this. And so in this use case, it is through a default.json file in a full stack JavaScript application. And so essentially I can just reference this variable or name, and that will pull this string. So basically all credentials will be in this file. It's just by preference in this scenario. But this is the string that we'll be using at the end. So you're going to go to mongodb.com. All right, and once you get here, if you have an account, just sign in. If not, create an account. It's free. Most accounts you can get free credits, whatnot. So I'm already signed in, so we'll go here. And so basically you're going to locate your organization and the projects tab. So we'll create a project. I'm going to create an e-learning course 001, which corresponds to a Udemy course I'm making. You can name this whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. And next we're gonna go over permissions and members. And so whoever's creating this by proxy or default, you'll automatically have the required permissions. So if you want to add team members or stuff like that, this is where that's relevant. So I'm going to skip through this and we'll click create project. All right, and so now we're going to create our database. So there's a couple different tiers you can pay. You can use a shared tier, and depending on what you're doing, speed and whatnot, that can be imperative or important. However, this is just a demo, so we are going to use a free shared tier. So this is what you can see what I'm talking about here. So I'm going to use shared tier on the right, starting at free. And then a cluster is basically, it's kind of like the storage or the location of your data. So in documents in MongoDB are essentially like, it's like imagine a document as a user. So whereas SQL, you have tables and rows and whatnot. So assuming you have the basic knowledge on this, we'll just go through this. Just trying to have a relatively short video to just guide people on the important aspects of this. So we'll click shared of the options of serverless, dedicated, etc. I'm going to use AWS. You're going to want to pick a location near you for your the point of origin where your cluster will be located. So I'm on the West Coast. So I'll use Oregon. Just try to get it as close to you as use general. Just try to get it close to you. And so I'm going to leave the cluster tier the same. This is just the same thing where if you want to adjust different settings for better performance, we're going to do no backups for simplicity. And the cluster name, I typically just use DB, short for database. You can name that whatever you want. However, when you reference it, this will be important to appropriately query whatever cluster that you're using. A cluster is basically a sub storage unit within the overall database. So we'll create this cluster. This will typically, after this step, it'll take a little bit, so I'll just fast forward the video at that point. But now we're going to create a username or a password. There's other ways to do this as well, but for simplicity, we'll just use Jeremy Blong as a username and a password, JAB-994. And I can't, here we go, yeah. So there's the password. Just remember these later. You'll need these to use in your connection string. So essentially, this username will correlate to the first part of the string, and the password will correlate to the password. There is a semicolon there, so do syntax correct. So we're going to create this user, and we're going to just skip over connecting because we are using a local environment. I typically, depending on how restrictive you want it to be, you can add specific IP addresses or all IP addresses, which will restrict who can access the database or modify whatnot, etc. So I'll use 0.0.0.0, and for the description, everyone and anyone. So we'll add this. This will give essentially anyone access to that. And now we're going to finish and close. All right, good deal. So now this is just going to deploy. We're going to go through. So if you want to bypass this and just connect via the string, you can just click the connect button right here. That'll take you to this view where you would select the second option, and that'll prompt you for whatever technology you're using and different ways and means to connect. I'm going to circle back to that, but first we're going to click the actual database. And so here we're not going to see anything because it's an empty database. So if you click collections, that'll take you to your actual collection. This is what I was saying about there's no data yet. If you want to see how this looks and functions, you can add sample data or load sample data or add your own. So you can see here we have 0 databases and 0 collections. So we're going to pan back to the overview, and yeah, these are all these tabs are just different functionality, more so advanced sort of features and functionality that you may need down the road. So I'm going to go back to this other tab, and we are going to connect now. So if I click this, I'm going to select the second option, connect your application. And like I said, I'm using Node and Express. So you just want to select whatever the relevant driver is, and these are the available languages of currently. So I guess late 2022. They're usually adding more. So if yours isn't on here, just check back periodically. MongoDB is amazing, and they're always making advancements. So I'm going to use Node.JS here, and then I'm going to select 4.1 as the version. This is very important because depending on what version you use, different functionality is essentially outdated or depreciated and no longer available. So also security-wise and just across the board, it's best to use the latest version for best practices and whatnot. So I'm going to use 4.1. You can choose other ones. However, there are some hiccups that you may run into, which you can find answers to on Stack Overflow and whatnot, but it's best to keep with the latest version. So this is our string that we'll actually take and put into our application. You can include the full driver for the actual code itself if you want to just use the stock standard way, but I already have an implementation set up. And so essentially I'm going to go to my code. This is where that query string comes into play. So say I didn't have that, and this is basically just a config file for Node or Express, the backend. I just used this package, config npm. So there's many packages that you can use. However, this one is amazing. I highly recommend it. But like I said, you can use whatever you'd like. So we're going to go back to the code, and so basically just paste your string wherever you have that configuration file. And so your username is already filled in, and in the previous section or the chunk of the video, we set our password and our username. So you just need to fill in the password and save this file. And theoretically, if you have your core code or connection string set up as such, so I'll show you my example just so you have a good idea. This is the connection file for my specific environment or setup, and then it's, let's see, executed. Just trying to find, there we are. All right. And so then I open the connection here. So, but this is a specific setup due to preference in my specific technology stack. You can really use, you can use it in so many different ways. But yeah, and so if you have a successful connection, and like I said, in my specific stack, the JavaScript full stack, you'll see a string confirming the connection. highlight that and I'll pan through just so you get a good idea of what it looks like. And this is just basically confirmation that we have connected to said database. I'll show you the code that logs this so you do understand what the actual, where that log comes from, I guess. And so in our config file that I showed you, the Mongo util, here we just basically, we use asynchronous, we basically initiate our response, we wait for it. Once we're connected, we will then log the variable or DB, which is assigned at a later point or earlier point right here. And yeah, and then we return it and feed it to whatever other functions or whatever it's imported so that that value is actually returned. But this is the basic setup via the connection string. There's many ways to do this. But yeah, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more videos. Code